Leslie stood in front of the bedroom mirror, scrutinizing her image. The light summer dress emphasized her slim figure. Her tan looked even, and her hair was a little carelessly styled, as if she were really going to a relaxed bachelorette party, not a weekend with her lover. She glanced down at her suitcase, checking to make sure she had everything. As if on automatic, she repeated the legend to herself, so she would not stumble over the details. She was going to a bachelorette party. Yes, that's right. Allegedly, her best friend Sophie was having a birthday party with an all-female group. Sandy beach, cocktails, spa, discussing the latest gossip. No husbands, just the girls. Of course, Jack did not mind. He always respected her privacy. "Are you sure you do not want me to give you a ride?" came his voice from the hallway. Leslie quickly fastened her bracelet and stepped out to meet her husband. He was standing in the doorway, leaning carelessly against the door jamb, a cup of coffee in his hand. No, everything is under control," she smiled, kissing him on the cheek. "The girls are already waiting for me, and I do not want to be late." "Okay," Jack shrugged, "get some rest." She caught his gaze, a little tired, a little distracted as always. He did not suspect a thing. She could have been gone for a week, and he would not have even checked to see where she was. Relief flooded inside. Sophie was indeed throwing a party, but Leslie was not going to it. Instead, a long weekend at a 5-star resort hotel on the coast with another man awaited her. Greg. She met him 6 months ago at the gym she went to in the mornings. He was a trainer, but not just a guy who pitched dumbbells. He had a natural magnetism, a charm, a confidence that Jack lacked. From the very beginning of their interactions, there was a spark between them, a slight flirtation, then the occasional coffee after a workout, innocent conversations about life that gradually grew into something more. Greg was nothing like her husband. He knew how to woo women, was not afraid to take the initiative, was not content to just go along to get along. He teased her, challenged her, made her feel desirable. When he suggested a weekend together without having to hide, without fear of casual glances, Leslie had hesitated at first. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized she wanted it. Greg was waiting for her in the parking lot. His white convertible looked almost defiant against the morning calm of suburbia. He sat in the car, watching her approach with a slight smile. "You took too damn long," he said, opening the door in front of her. "I had to do everything neatly," she parried, putting her suitcase in the back seat. He reached over and brushed a strand of hair off her shoulder and grinned as he glanced down at her figure. "The important thing is that you're here." The car pulled away, leaving behind their cozy home, their stable but boring marriage. Leslie pulled out her phone, took a snapshot of the cocktail from the internet, and sent Jack a text. "Having a full-on vacation." He'd probably smile, wish her a good time, and that would be the end of it. She did not know that at that very moment her husband was looking at their wedding photo and thinking about how long it had been since he surprised her. Jack finished his morning coffee, drumming his fingers thoughtfully on the kitchen table. There was something indefinable swirling around in his head, like a vague feeling that he was missing something. Leslie had left a few hours ago, texted a couple messages, sent a picture of a cocktail with the caption, "Having the time of our lives." Everything seemed perfectly normal, but the longer he sat in the silence of their home, the more he felt some kind of emptiness. He remembered their early years of marriage, how he arranged spontaneous trips for her, how they could sneak away for the weekend without a plan, just because they wanted to be alone together. That was a long time ago. Now things had become predictable, and he blamed himself for that. He pulled his phone closer, reviewing the message from Leslie. The resort, the beach, girls in cocktail dresses, laughter, sunshine. What if? The idea came suddenly. Why not go to her place? Why not surprise her? He immediately opened his laptop and typed the name of the resort into the search box. A few clicks and a booking offer appeared on the screen. The last available suite with an ocean view. He did not think long. He booked right away. The hotel looked perfect for a romantic weekend getaway. He pictured Leslie's face when he'd show up there, unexpectedly, with flowers and champagne. She'd be surprised, of course. But then she'd be pleased. At that moment, a warm feeling spilled inside him. Anticipation. He felt like he was acting like the hero of a romantic movie who decided to remind his wife why they'd fallen in love in the first place. He turned off his laptop, closed his suitcase, threw a couple more things in it, and grabbed his car keys. It was not going to be a long drive, but he knew it would be worth it. Jack did not realize he was not on his way to a joyous reunion, but to the biggest blow of his life. Jack pulled up to the hotel at sunset. The sky, painted pink and orange, reflected softly in the huge glass panels of the building. The parking attendant immediately hopped up to his car, smiling politely. Jack pulled his suitcase out of the trunk, clutching tightly in his other hand a small bouquet of white roses and a gold-wrapped bottle of champagne. He counted again in his head. Roses exactly how many years they'd been together. Everything was perfect with this one. In his head, he pictured Leslie's face, first the shock, then the smile, the soft kiss at reception. Well, or on the way to the elevator. Maybe in the room. She'd be pleased, no doubt. Stepping through the revolving doors, he found himself in a huge lobby. People bustled about, some in shorts and sunglasses, some in business suits, with travel bags in front of them. Jack was greeted by the smell of fresh flowers and vases and the sound of water from the fountain at the front desk. He made his way to the front desk, set his suitcase next to his foot, and filed his paperwork. The receptionist, a slender girl with perfect hair, smiled at him professionally, quickly typing his information into the computer. "Welcome, Mr. Watson. Your room is ready. Let me get a porter to help you with your luggage." Jack waved his hand as if to say no worries. He knew the suitcase was light, and he wanted to handle it himself. Everything was going exactly as he planned. Scraps of the lines he would greet Leslie with ran through his head. "I did not think I'd miss a weekend like this with you. Surprise. So, how does it feel to be married to a hopeless romantic?" The receptionist returned the passport with the key card, and Jack went to the elevators. Unobtrusive jazz music played in the lobby, and people scurried back and forth. No one paid much attention to him. He caught the reflection of his face in the mirrored surface of the elevator door, the strap of his bag, the neat tie. Everything in place. Leslie was sure to be impressed. The elevator doors opened. Jack stepped inside, standing in the very corner. He looked at the screen with the floor numbers and pressed the one he wanted. The elevator slowly crept upward. All those words he rehearsed on the way here were rolling around in his head. The bouquet clutched lightly under his arm, the champagne rolling over in his hand. Nothing foretold that the next moment the world beneath his feet would crumble. When the doors opened again, Jack took a step forward, not noticing that someone was already waiting for the elevator on this floor. Voices, laughter, the slight rustle of fabric. But he only saw it for a split second. The light, flying dress, Leslie's radiant smile, and the tall figure of the man beside her. Her head tilted slightly toward his shoulder, and he leaned closer, clearly saying something in her ear. The movement was too close, too intimate. Leslie did not have a phone or a cocktail in her hands. She did not look like she'd just been discussing hats or new trends with her friends. She was completely engrossed in this man. Her gaze sparkled in a way it had not sparkled in a long time around him. Jack stopped, frozen. Leslie looked up and saw him. Their gazes crossed. Her pupils flashed first in surprise, then realization. She was petrified. If she'd been on the road, she could have been compared to a deer frozen in front of a speeding truck. "Jack," she breathed out, barely audible. There was no joy in her voice, no elation, just shock and poorly concealed fear. Greg turned around, trying to figure out what was going on. His gaze shifted from Leslie to Jack, then back again. His expression was one of annoyance, bordering on mockery. He did not even seem to realize he was facing his husband. Jack felt his fingers tighten around the bouquet and the bottle. The flowers began to sting, a few petals falling off. He did not say anything. His head was buzzing. The words he rehearsed no longer made sense. Everything had lost its meaning. Leslie took a step forward as if about to say something, but then stopped. Greg grinned openly, as if he was amused by the scene. Leslie gave him a brief glance, and he shrugged and took a half step back, as if that gave her time and space to explain something. She felt a chill run down her spine. Everything inside is screaming at her to run, to hide, as if that will save her from his fixed, burning gaze. But instead, she takes a step forward, involuntarily raising her hand, as if trying to stop his accusatory, silent monologue. "Oh, you here too?" She begins, and her voice sounds too ringing, almost fake. What an incredible coincidence. What an incredible coincidence. She smiles, but it is a cramped smile like someone caught in the act. She feels herself blushing. Leslie knows she has to get something believable out before Jack says those dreadful words she sees in his eyes. But they still sound like a bell, splintering her fragile alibi apart. Really? And how long has your bachelorette party included men? He does not raise his voice, but every word echoes deafeningly in her ears. It is not a scream, not a scene, it is worse. It is the icy comma man who looks at you like you a stranger. He does not even raise his tone, but his words make everything inside shatter. Leslie nods quickly, grabs Greg's hand, and takes 2 steps forward, lifting her chin a little higher to appear confident. "Greg is my friend's brother," she made up as she went along, looking only at Jack, avoiding Greg's gaze. "He drove us because we did not want to take a cab." She feels her voice begin to tremble, but she continues quickly, confidently, as if she talked long enough and fast enough, it would all start to sound believable. "It is Sophia's birthday today," she adds, as if that explains everything. "And Greg, yes, just helping out. That is all." She notices Greg leaning back slightly, frowning. He obviously does not understand, but that does not stop him from interjecting. Yes. I'm just, well, taking care of your wife. I mean, I'm her." And then, just like in the script, a waiter appears. A young guy in a perfectly pressed shirt walks up, leans over to Leslie, and hands her a check. The check reads, "Romantic dinner for 2 with champagne." The smile on the waiter's face is so kind, it makes her want to scream. Leslie grabs the check, but it is too late. Jack manages to glance at the papers, his icy gaze changing. Not to anger, no. That would have been easier. No, he looks like he has figured it all out. Absolutely everything. And that knowledge has crushed all her attempts to wriggle out of it. "Romantic dinner, huh?" He says, more to himself than to her. "At the bachelorette party. With your friend's brother." Leslie feels the ground beneath her feet go away. She wants to say something, but she see not. Her mouth opens, but there are no words. Greg does not seem to realize it's better to shut up. He opens his mouth again. We're just friends, really. That is all. Shut your mouth. Leslie whispers harshly, unable to stand it. But that only makes it worse. Greg takes offense and steps aside, defiantly looking away. And now she is alone in front of Jack. Alone with her confused lies and her husband's heavy, scrutinizing gaze. The waiter, sensing the tension, silently leaves. Greg mutters something quietly, but Jack no longer pays attention to him. He just stares at Leslie, silent, as if she should tell him everything without waiting for his questions. And that silence is worse than screaming. The worst silence of her life. Leslie stood before him, shuffling from foot to foot like a schoolgirl caught cheating. Greg, the cocky stranger, clearly did not understand the complexity of the situation, but he felt less and less comfortable. His eyebrows shifted every now and then, and his smile grew tenser and tenser. Jack slowly circled them with his gaze, as if he were studying how a complex mechanism worked. Then suddenly he smiled wide enough to send shivers down Leslie's spine. "You know," he said, as if suggesting a brilliant idea, "since we all here, why do not we celebrate our meeting with a threesome?" Leslie slammed her eyes shut, as if she could not believe her ears. She looked at Jack, then at Greg, then back at Jack. "Oh yeah, great idea," she squeezed out, trying to smile. Greg, sensing the unnatural tone, took a step back and coughed. "I guess. I'm not sure what." "Come on, Greg." Jack stepped closer to him, putting a hand on his shoulder. "Would you really turn down an opportunity like this?" Greg looked at Leslie, seeking her support. But Leslie, already feeling the sweat beading on her temples, nodded uncertainly. They headed toward the restaurant. Jack was surprisingly calm, almost casual. He chatted about the views, the weather, asked Greg if he liked the local cuisine. But his words sounded as if each one had a second, third, or even fourth meaning. Leslie felt as if 1,000 invisible needles were piercing her skin, though Jack had not raised his voice or said a single direct accusation yet. They took a table overlooking the ocean. The waiter served the menu. Jack asked cheerfully, "Leslie, dear, what do you recommend we order?" You probably already tasted the local specialties, right? Leslie barely audibly replied, "Well, I have not really tried it. Oh, is that so?" Jack turned to Greg. "Then maybe you, Greg, have some advice? I'm sure you have a favorite dish." Greg coughed, stared at the menu as if he were looking for salvation in its pages, and mumbled, "Probably escalope." "Yes, escalope. Great," Jack exclaimed, leaning back in his chair. "Escalope, so escalope. Let S order the escalope." Leslie fidgeted nervously with the edge of her napkin. Her heart was pounding like it was going to jump out of her chest. She tried to think of ways to explain the situation, but all words seemed useless. Every time she opened her mouth to say something, Jack seemed to be waiting for her answer, never taking his gaze off her. "You know, Leslie," Jack leaned forward as if to speak to her in a friendly way. "I've been thinking how lucky we are to have met here. Can you believe it? It really is a small world." Leslie nodded faintly. The waiter brought appetizers. Jack thanked politely, raised his glass, looked at Greg and Leslie. "Here's to accidents that only happen to us." He took a sip of wine, keeping his eyes on his wife. Greg tried to make a toast, but did it so tentatively that the wine almost spilled out of his glass. Leslie brought the glass to her lips, but instead of drinking, she held it to her face, as if hoping to hide behind a glass wall. The main course arrived, but the food remained almost untouched. Tension hung in the air, like before a thunderstorm. The waiter seemed to sense that something was wrong, but did not know how to behave. Jack continued to smile, occasionally exchanging brief but sharp remarks with Leslie. She was increasingly confused, answering confusedly, avoiding meeting his eyes. The waiter had just left, leaving a dessert of sliced fruit on the table. Jack, who had been sitting leaning back in his chair, suddenly straightened up. He leaned forward, smiled a little wider than before, and said carelessly, "Leslie, dear, do you know what we need right now? A picture. We have such rare dinners together. Let be a keepsake." Leslie frowned, surprised at the sudden request. "Why?" she asked cautiously. "Why?" Jack answered, raising his eyebrows. "Such a day, such an atmosphere. We need to capture it." Leslie nodded confusedly and, not knowing what to say, reached into her purse for her phone. She handed it to Jack with trembling fingers, afraid he would notice her condition. Jack took the phone as if it were as fragile as a porcelain figurine. He turned on the camera, looked at Leslie and Greg, who were frozen like mannequins. "Move over a little," Jack said, making a gesture with his hand. "I want you to see all this beauty in the frame." Leslie hesitantly moved closer to Greg, who moved away. His face was a mixture of tension and slight panic, but he was still trying to maintain a semblance of calm. Jack raised his phone as if he were going to take a picture, but instead he lowered it, staring at the screen. "Wait, what's this notification?" he mumbled, scrolling through something on the display. Leslie froze, feeling her heart start to pound frantically. She reached for Jack, trying to grab the phone. "Oh, it is nothing much," she began, trying to speak calmly. "It is probably from a friend." But Jack would not let the phone out of her hands. He looked up at his wife, blinked slowly, and then looked at the screen again. Something new flashed in his eyes, no longer just sarcasm or irritation, but clear confidence. "I love you." Waiting in the room, Greg, he read it aloud, his tone unchanging, as if he were reciting a restaurant menu. Greg swallowed loudly. Leslie felt the blood rush from her face. It was as if everything around her had stopped. At a neighboring table, someone was laughing, waiters were arranging plates. And here, at this moment, time stood still. Jack put the phone down on the table in front of Leslie, then took his fork and carefully tasted a piece of dessert. So, Leslie, he said with an icy smile, still want to keep this show going? Jack looked at the phone from which he'd just read the message. Love you. Waiting in the room. Greg. The silence at the table was sepulchral. Only in a neighboring corner of the restaurant, some company was laughing, and the waiters were scurrying between tables, clinking glasses. But in this small, isolated point of the world, something else was frozen, the heated air before the storm. Leslie sat with a pale face, not knowing what to do, her hands clenched under the table, her nails digging into her skin. Greg looked tense too, but more out of awkwardness. He was clearly uncomfortable, but he was still trying to keep up a semblance of confidence. Jack put the phone down on the table, then leisurely removed the napkin from his lap, smoothing the cuff of his sleeve. So, Leslie, do you still want to go on with this show? He asked, raising his gaze to her. Leslie opened her mouth, but no words came out, just a stifled breath. Jack, you what? He cut her off abruptly. Did you get the wrong number? You did not know it was Greg? Or maybe you were so stupid you forgot to delete your messages while you were sitting at the same table with me. The restaurant went quiet. A few people at neighboring tables began to sneak a peek at what was going on. Listen, buddy, Greg interjected, trying to lighten the mood. I understand that you were angry, but he did not get a chance to finish. Jack sprang from his chair, and before anyone could react, his foot slammed into the front leg of Greg's chair. The wooden structure slid backward, tilting, and Greg himself fell clumsily to the floor, flailing his arms. His back hit the tile with a thud, and the tables next to him swayed. You bitch, do not talk while I'm talking to you, Jack bellowed, standing over him. Leslie jumped up, covering her mouth with her hands. Greg tried to raise himself up on his elbows, but Jack took a step closer, signaling that it was best to stay where he was. The waiter froze a few feet away, clearly unsure what to do. Jack, please. Leslie tried to interject, but he turned to her, and she was immediately silenced. Please? He grinned. Oh, now you're re-saying please? And when you spread your legs in front of that asshole, did you say please too? Leslie jerked as if slapped. That S not how. How is it? He shouted, drowning out her voice. How? Explain to me how you ended up in a hotel, in a restaurant, on a romantic dinner with a guy you texted to say you were waiting for him in your room. She bit her lip, trying to gather her words, but he was not listening anymore. Everything inside him was boiling. He stared at her, the woman he loved, with whom he shared a home, a life, plans, and now it was all burned away in one evening. He leaned closer so she could hear every word. You a complete cunt. Leslie blinked, opened her mouth, but he already straightened up. Jack took the bottle of champagne from the table, indifferently swept the glasses to the floor, the glass shattered, the clinking rolling through the restaurant. You can go home, he said coldly, but only to get your things. Tomorrow I'll have the divorce papers ready for you to sign. Leslie turned even paler. Jack, wait. You've already used up all my patience. Goodbye, Leslie. He looked at her once more, but now there was not even anger in his gaze. Only cold, icy indifference. He turned and walked calmly toward the exit, leaving her amid broken glasses, overturned chairs, and startled stares. And that's where today's story ends. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed it, do not forget to like and comment. We'd love to discuss this story with you. See you in the next video.